So guys, what did we talk about last week? You guys remember, there's a person, he was named Randy. You guys remember the Randy story? What was the Randy story about? Brent. Yes. Someone had a top 10 list of his favorite friends, and how he kept switching that list, right? And the list wasn't actually on people that he actually were like his best friends, they were just on whoever he happened to like that day. And Jay happened to use that as like a metaphor to be like, that shouldn't be the way that we view our friends, right? And in the past we use 1 Corinthians 13 to talk about love, right? And that even as friends, we should be people who are 1 Corinthians friends to others, and that's what we should look for in friends, the people who just love us like Jesus loves us. So we're continuing kind of the series that we've labeled The Neighborhood. Right? And in the neighborhood, you meet a lot of different people, right? You have your neighbors that you never talk to, right? Maybe creep you out a little bit, let's be honest. Yes. We all have some of those. Maybe you have the neighbor that you go and hang out with their kids, right? You guys go and you guys play volleyball or ride your bikes around. Maybe you have the neighbor that's just really different from you and you have a hard time understanding them. And kind of the overall idea of the neighborhood is that we interact with a lot of different people in life, right? Whether it be at school, during sports, at home, going about our normal days. We interact with a lot of different people, and how do we use these relationships and these interactions? How do we glorify God through them? So today's message is called Counting the Cost. And what I thought I would start off with is a story about being embarrassed. Have you guys ever been embarrassed?
Oh yeah.
Right. Who embarrasses you the most?
Jacob.
Mom and Dad?
Mom and Dad.
Sister?
Liam.
Liam? That's your brother.
Yeah, sit right behind me.
I can see that being bad, yeah.
My mom.
Your mom. Yeah. So normally it's the people that know us best normally know how to embarrass us. So I'll tell you guys a story. I was probably 12 years old. All right, I was 12 years old, and we were as a family, we're at like Bed Bath & Beyond, which already for a guy is already a weird idea. All right, but being 12, I was like, oh, I don't like being here. This isn't really manly. And we were there because we were looking for a soap for my grandma for the birthday, and Grandma had everything, and so we're like, get her a soap. That, just so you guys know, when it comes to like getting like soaps or candles, that's when you run out of ideas for gifts, and that's normally what you give. You're like, everyone needs it. So, but we're there, and it's in the middle of this mall, and this girl named Sarah, who was the most popular girl at my school, happened to be walking by in like the main area, and I don't want her to see me, you know? I'm like, she's popular, I'm not, and I'm in Bed Bath & Beyond right now looking for soap for my grandma. Like, this is not a good situation for me and for my social standing. And so I tried to hide, right? I tried to hide behind, I don't even know what it was. But I tried to hide behind something. My dad, who clearly sees this whole entire situation going on, has an idea. He's like, let's see how I can get under Brad's skin a little bit. So he walks out and he goes, hey Brad, I found that foot cream you're looking for. I was mortified, horrified. Never regained the social standing, guys. It was rough, you know. But I will say, hopefully since then, it takes a lot more to embarrass me. I still think it can be done. You guys, I'm trying to think if you guys have ever embarrassed me in any situation. Maybe one of you might have been able to get me. I don't know. It's really hard to embarrass me now. But that doesn't mean that I am always confident. And sometimes, I'll be honest guys, I get scared. Right? I get scared in certain situations. What are people going to think? What are they going to say of me? I remember, I just kind of get scared sometimes, especially sometimes when it comes to like being Jesus to those around me, especially those who I know don't know Jesus or who might not like Christians. And sometimes I get nervous. I'll give you a good example. I was in community college, and I was friends with this guy named Lee. Lee was this big Marine guy, right? And Lee was pretty much like an X-type person where he's like, it's my way or the highway, right? And one day I really wanted to share who Jesus was with him. And I was really scared, like, hey, but what if Lee doesn't like me? What if he's just like frustrated because I share this? Another part of me was like, what if he punches me? Like, he's a big guy. Like, I don't know. He didn't punch me. But it was a nervous wreck, you know? And I don't know about you guys, but do you guys ever feel like just scared being a Christian or sharing Jesus around your friends. Or maybe you're scared what others will think. Or maybe you're not scared at all. Right? Maybe it's not a fear. Maybe you're just like, maybe it's like the person I am at church is way different than the person I am at school, because who I'm supposed to be here and who I am at school is a completely different person. Maybe you try to justify it, right? You try to say, oh, this is right because they don't know and I don't want to make them angry and God wouldn't want me to upset them, so I'm not going to represent Jesus to them. Or maybe, if you're really honest, I think a lot of people and a lot of Americans who call themselves Christians in this country, they would say, yeah, I try to live for Christ, but a lot of times I also try to live for my friends. Maybe that's where you're at. But I guess my hope overall in this message when it comes to counting the cost is that we would not be a people who are ashamed of who Jesus is. Right? Embarrassed. The idea of ashamed is kind of the greater version of embarrassed. Ashamed is being like, I don't want to be known because I'm a Christian. So that's a little bit about what we're talking today. So open up your Bibles, if you guys have it, to Luke 9, verses 23 through 26. Luke 9, verses 23 through 26. All right, and while you guys are getting there, I'm going to give you kind of the general gospel presentation that you guys might have heard before. This is kind of a surface level, early understanding gospel presentation. So someone would be like, hey, do you know Jesus? Ashton, do you know Jesus? Don't you want to know Jesus? He wants to be your best friend. He died for you. Don't you want to be his buddy? Don't you want to be his friend? Don't you want to Don't you want to let him into your heart so you can live forever? Right? That's normally kind of the general gospel presentation. And while that isn't necessarily wrong, it isn't complete. You see, because following Christ is hard work. Following Christ means that we have to count the costs. There are going to be things that we are going to lose in this life because we follow after Jesus. So, read with me, Luke 9, 20-26 is on the screens. It says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet lose or forfeit their very self? Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man, will be ashamed of them when he comes in his glory. And the main verse I really want you guys to hit on is the next verse. We can pull it up. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, pick up their cross daily, and follow me. So I want you guys to say this with me. All right? Ready? Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. So we're going to continue to do that, right? Because I want you guys to know this first. So, I was like, okay, what are 3 costs? 3 things for us as middle schoolers or as Americans or just as Christians in general that cost us because we live for Christ. So the first one, guys, the first one is that my life is not about me. Okay, just think about that. My life, your life, it's not about you, it's not about me. That stands directly against everything we've ever been told. Everything we've ever been told is like, oh, you got to make sure to be working really hard because you got to get to this point, or you got to get to there, or you got to, if you just do this stuff, and then you'll make it, yada yada. And we're very self-focused as people. But the very idea why we were even created in the first place is not about us, it's about God. God created us in his image that we might bear his image, that we might represent him in our world. 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 says, you are not your own. You were bought at a price. So we are made to glorify God. And that doesn't just mean at church. This doesn't just mean in your life groups. It means in every aspect of our lives. Every aspect. Whether it be from friendships, whether it be sports, whether it be at school, whether it be on social media, whether it be playing video games, whether it be just at home eating dinner with your family. Every single part of us should live to represent God. That is what we were created to do. Now, does that mean we always do it and we're always going to be successful? No way. Right? We mess up a lot. We all mess up and we all fall. And that's okay. And that's why Jesus died. But the very idea why we were created in the first place, and our very idea as Christians, is to represent who Jesus is, who God is to this world. So the first goal is my life is not about me. I said the second goal is that God's opinion is greater than man's opinion. Now this is a hard one. So sometimes we get like this idea, like man's opinion is like, oh yeah, just the world, yeah. I'm even saying your friends. That God's opinion, what God says, should be greater than what your friends think. What God says should be greater than what your parents think. What God says should be greater than what I say. Read that verse, guys. Matthew 10, 37-38. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. There's another passage in Luke that talks about it. It even goes farther, and he says you have to almost like hate your mother and father. Now, it doesn't mean like actually hate them, but it means that you should love Jesus. That he should be number one, so much so that it should almost be so far second that it will be almost completely away to the idea of hate. Now, obviously, I'm not asking you to hate your family. Don't do that. But that's how much you guys should love Jesus. That's how primary he should be in your life. That everything comes far, far second. Everything. Everything should come second to what Jesus says, who he calls us to be. Everything has to come second to Jesus. And our first opinion, the first thing we should care about is what Jesus says. Guys, let's repeat our verse again. You pull that up again, Jacob? All right. Whoever wants to be my disciple, deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Yeah. So the first one is my life is not about me. Second one, God's opinion is greater than man's opinion, or your friend's opinion, or your parents' opinion. Third one is that suffering is part of the Christian life. Suffering is part of the Christian life. Philippians 4:10, actually my favorite verse, guys. It says, I want to know Christ, yes, to know the power of his resurrection, and participate in his suffering, becoming like him in his death. Normally, we don't necessarily think of suffering as a good thing. And I don't want you to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to get to suffer. Yay. No, don't have that opinion. But Christ is worth it. And Jesus says that you will suffer in this world because of me. Because you know Jesus. Now, in our world today, we don't really suffer much in America. But there are people around the world that if they were to express, if they were to say to their friends, their family, oh, I'm a Christian, they could easily die for it. Seriously, they could easily die for that. There are people that are in prison for that. And guys, our world, even in America, is becoming more and more hostile toward the idea of Christians. Especially those who really represent Christ. Because sometimes, guys, what happens, and this is often things that you'll see, is you'll have people who call themselves Christians, and yet their lives look exactly like everyone else's. And so when it's that type of Christian, people are like, oh yeah, it's fine, it's no problem. But when you actually represent Christ, and you stand out different than the culture, and you stand out different than the society, different than what your friends say, different than what the world says, people don't necessarily like that. And that's what can cause suffering. And really in our world, the most suffering you're probably going to face right now is probably just from a social context of what your friends might think, what they might say. One of my favorite women of Christianity or of the church in general is this lady named Perpetua. Alright? Kind of looks like, what's her name from Star Wars? You know what I'm talking about? Princess Leia. Yeah. She kind of looks like Princess Leia. I don't know if this is actually, I don't think this is actually an accurate picture. But her name is Perpetua. Guys, say Perpetua. Perpetua. Fun. Yes. So Perpetua was somebody, she lived in a city called Carthage, right, which was in Africa. And this is around like the 200s AD. So Jesus, this is like 150 years after Jesus. And she's a Christian, right? She follows after Jesus. And what happened during that time is that if you were a Christian, if it became known, you would be in prison. So she became in prison. And she just so happened that she just had a baby, like right before she got in prison. And the reason why I like Perpetua so much, and why I think she's such a brave woman of faith, is that her father, someone who obviously she cares about dearly, comes to her in the prison with her son and says, "Don't you care about your baby boy? Don't you care that he would have a mother? Just say that Jesus isn't your Lord. Just give up on that. Like, doesn't he mean more to you than that?" And she doesn't. She can't. She can't say it. She goes, "No, Jesus is who I am." So eventually, kind of what happens is that Perpetua and her group of friends, they get taken into the Colosseum. Right? If you guys don't know what the Colosseum is, the Colosseum is the big building that you'll see, the most famous ones in Rome. Is these huge like amphitheaters, like outdoor theaters things, where there'd be like kind of like a circle in the middle, and that's where all the action would happen. There'd be like gladiator battles and stuff like that. And everyone on the outside there'd be fans like yelling and cheering, yada yada. But sometimes it would also be death sentences for people. And they'd put Christians and people they didn't like, they put them in the middle, and they would have either gladiators or wild animals come out and kill them to the cheers and applause of those around in the stands. That's what happened to Perpetua. The cost of following Christ in Perpetua fights is that she died for it. Because I remember being in college, and I remember thinking about this, because I had a lot of friends who wanted to go over overseas to a lot more hostile areas, and I had to think, hey, would I be willing to die for Jesus? If someone came to me and said, hey, I'm going to imprison you and you're going to die for your faith, unless you say you're not a follower of Jesus right now, would you do it? Would you stay? Would you say, yes, I'm going to follow Jesus, even if it means I lose my life? I'd like to think I would. But I'll be honest with you, it's hard. It is a hard choice to make. But that's the idea of counting the cost. The idea of counting the cost is that following Jesus is not an easy thing to do. So let's go back to our verse one more time. You can pull that back up. All right, one more time, I'll say it again. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. What do you guys think this verse means? Anna. Chloe. You look at your sister, sorry. Yeah, totally. Point. You guys get a point. There you go. Yes. Deny yourself for what God wants you to do. Okay, that's part of it. That's to deny yourself. What does it take up your cross idea? Sophie.
Like carrying a big old burden of the cross on your back and kind of suffering.
Okay, you're very literal with it. There's a metaphorical idea, right? Because we're not normally all going to actually have a cross.
Maybe like think about it every day and like give up your life for success and like
Yeah. Together. Are you guys both 5th and 6th?
No, I said it. I'm just in one section.
Okay, give me both points. There you go. EK.
It's kind of like you have to you could have to do this if you
Yeah, no, exactly. Yes. And so following God isn't just this hunky-dory, everything's going to be perfect, everything life's going to be all the time. It's hard. But it's worth it. Because Jesus is worth it. So guys, we have a decision to make. How much are we going to follow after Jesus? Are we going to keep him at a distance, or are we going to go all in? Are we going to live out our purposes set on who God calls us to be, knowing that our life belongs to him, not to ourselves? Or are we going to live for ourselves? Are we going to be willing to suffer because we know that Jesus is worth it? Are we going to seek to know God's opinion in different circumstances in life Or are we going to seek to just care whatever our friends say? You can't have it both ways. You can't sit on the fence when it comes to God, right? You can't just be of God and of the world. You can't have both. My hope is that we would be people of God. We'd be radical followers of Jesus. Because he's worth it.